Kim, good morning, and thank you for joining us on this Friday.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, so I say it's musician, but I know you're more than that. I know you're into singing, you're a songwriter, you're a music executive. Have I covered it all, or I've left something out?
That's a big chunk of it, so yes.
And out of those hats that you wear, whether it's writing a song, or whether it's managing other artists, or actually being behind the mic yourself, what says Kim more for you?
Well, it's definitely the songwriting. I enjoy the creative process more than anything. And I think the songwriting has helped me not only write for myself, but tapping into other artists' shoes and getting to tell their stories, through their voices has been such an amazing experience. So the songwriting is the strongest arm.
And with the songwriting, for example, obviously, I'm sure you've written for other artists and for yourself. How different is that process, for example, if you're working with artist X, right?
Yes.
And do they give you the idea of what they want the song to be about, or do you write a song and go, you know what, I'm going to pitch it to this artist because I think it works for them? How does that process work?
So it's pretty much they make the first step, or give me an idea to work with, or even if they're stuck, and then I get to hear their voice and imagine what they would sing about. So it's mostly the artist coming up with how they would want their song to be like. I've never really pitched a song to an artist. Probably something I would try, but the issue with that is because I'm also an artist. Obviously, the first song I write, I try to see if I can sing it, and then if I can't, we put it up for auction.
And I've always wondered this, right?
Yes.
When I look at the creative process behind making music.
Yes.
And I'm obviously, in terms of writing the song, are you also thinking about the melody as well, or it's just putting the words to paper and then the melody comes at a later stage? Like when you're writing it, are you going like, do you have the rhythm of how it's going to sound, or like I'm fascinated by that process?
It's always definitely different for every songwriter, but for me in particular, I actually get the melody first, and then tap into whatever emotion that whatever instrumental I'm listening to evokes, or whatever I'm feeling at that moment, and then put words to the melody.
Right, and then obviously coming to the music side, I'm trying to remember the song that's currently on the Star hit list.
Undirote.
Undirote. I was like, I know I can hear it, but I was trying to. How does that feel? Obviously, having a song making it to the charts, and I mean that's one of your latest releases, right?
Yes, it is, and it's been 4 weeks running, so it's an exciting time for sure. And especially how that particular project came about just shows me how powerful it is, how collaboration is really powerful. Not only did I collaborate with Carville on the song, but even in terms of the creative process, there were a lot of heads involved. There was Delroy Shewe, there was Lamal, there was a lot of heads came together to make that song work. So it's exciting times.
And what was the inspiration behind Undirote? Did you dream about it?
Actually, it was a weird studio night. Delroy Shewe told a very sad love story.
Yeah.
Like I actually cried when I was writing this particular song. But it's basically a story about two lovers, former lovers rather, who are in current relationships and they cannot get back to each other for whatever reason. So the only place they can meet is in their dreams.
And obviously this was inspired by the conversation that you. Wow, I can imagine how torturous that can be. But I've also noticed that I think, especially when it comes to love songs, or songs that have love themes, if I can call it that, a lot of the inspiration is around heartbreak.
True.
Why is that? I mean, why? I know, yes, we can sing about how much I love you, but I always feel like, especially the best love songs are always about, torture and heartbreak and why and I miss you. And why do you think that is?
I think because heartbreak or pain really cuts the deepest. So most people can relate to that. Unfortunately, especially in current times where love is taken as a game and people are doing the most in the streets. So it's easier for people to relate to the pain than it is for them to relate to true love stories. So it's a sad reality.
Obviously, that's the most current and the one that's trending on the charts.
Yes.
But in terms of your body of work now, when you look at it, in terms of where you began and where you are now, what are some of the projects that you've worked on that you go like, you know what, I was in my bag here. This is, whether they were critically acclaimed or popular or not, like your personal favorites in terms of your own body of work?
All right, so I think the first one I would mention is definitely my first feature. So I went big on the very first one, and that's with XQ Mashoko.
Yeah.
And that was the first.
The king of collabs.
Yeah, the king of collabs, you could say that. And he's been 20 plus years in the game, so it works.
Yeah.
And that was definitely my big break, so to speak. And then also there's a couple of projects that I worked with different entities on, and then getting into the commercial side of things. So I think Mashoko was the door opener, definitely.
And in terms of performances,
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to perform that with XQ, or was it just like we did it in the studio and ta-da, bye-bye?
Yes, actually, my first Jacaranda show,
Yeah.
Jacaranda Music Festival performance was with XQ for that song. And it was more like a surprise because people heard the name and they were like, who's Kim, who's Kim?
Yeah.
So that appearance was amazing.
And at the top of our sit down, we did highlight the many hats, the singer,
Yes.
or the songwriter, and then there's the music executive, which sounds like a very broad term, but I
Yes.
know you work with and manage other artists. How does that sort of then fit into the songwriting, the singer? Isn't there a conflict for you to say, you know what, I'm trying to sing,
Yes.
I'm also trying to write songs for people, and I'm trying to manage?
Well, it's a gamble, definitely, and I'm actually working around putting structures to it. But one thing I realized being in the industry, because I'm doing it full time, I realized that, I have to know where the money is, first of all. And then
The commercial aspect,
yes,
yeah.
exactly. So when I got down into that wormhole, I realized, okay, there's a lot of structures that needs to be, in place here in Zim, a lot of things that have not necessarily been set up, or a lot of conversations that are still being had. So I felt a greater part of me saying, you know what, I think I can play a part in shaping the industry. So once I started doing that, that's when I realized, okay, there's a gap in music business admin, there's a gap in this, in publishing, there's a gap in that. So I tried to contribute towards that, and then all of a sudden it turned out to be quite important to some brands. And so most of the work is pretty much consultancy and just seeing that other brands are actually doing the most. So that's pretty much how it's been.
And in terms of that side of, what are some of the key areas that you look at and say, you know what, you shared that you've had an assessment and looked at it and seen certain gaps.
Yes.
Like, what has been the priority for you in these initial stages of you going into the administration or the commercial side of the music industry?
So it's pretty much, I think, putting a structure, defining brands. So most people, I realized there's a very big disconnect between the creative world and the corporate world, or even media, for example. So some artists don't even know you have to have a bio. Some artists don't even know you have to have an electronic press kit.
So we're talking about the basics
The
here.
very basic, you see. So
Yeah.
it's that very work, and it then steps into everything else, because before we even talk about, for example, publishing, which is where the money is really, there's no publishing without paperwork, without the metadata of the songs, and that starts from even just having a bio to start with. Or a good, yes, online presence is great in terms of content, but for corporates or other entities that want to work with you, there's certain information that has to be there. So even if we do want to break out as a country in the global music scene, we have to sort that out first.
I know sometimes creatives can be notorious for a lack of structure. They want to do things when and as they want to.
Yes.
So in terms of maybe then engaging other artists, has it helped you, the fact that you're also a songwriter, a singer yourself, in terms of understanding and then connecting with them and saying, you know what, we need to have this, because they will be like, XU might be like, everybody knows who I am.
Yes.
Why do I need a bio?
Yes.
Oh, why do I need, what has been the response from the various players in the industry that you've worked with in terms of trying to infuse the corporate side of things into their brand and their artistry?
Well, it's definitely been a rough ride at the moment, but then it's warming up. So I think the first one that showed me that there's a lot of work to be done is the songwriting, because people were still skeptical about having someone else put an input on their creative work. So being a creative myself, and I also had a time when I struggled to have
Like,
people
hey,
you want
this
to
is
write
my
for me?
passion
What do you mean?
project.
So I think being a creative as well has helped me be able to communicate with the other brands and say, okay, listen, I know this is how you feel about it, but this is how we're going to get the bag, or this is how we're going to sort this out. So it's been rough, but it's definitely warming up. And I think Zimbabwe is having the important conversations in the music spaces. So it's an interesting time for sure.
Any artists that we might know that you're working with, and any projects that you who might have the inside scoop on?
Well, with regards to my music, I do have a big collaboration coming on, a local one and an international one.
Oh, all right.
So it's exciting times.
Do we know? Are you ready to spill the artist yet?
I will just give a hint on the local one, a hint. And if you know, you know. 5-star. The next local collaboration is going to be a 5-star collaboration. Do what you want with that information.
5-star collaboration. All right, my mind's like, okay.
You know? And then on the music business side, I'm actually part of the team that is putting together the Shashal launch for the 21st of June. So it's exciting times, really. Busy, but exciting.
Busy but exciting. Oh no, absolutely fantastic. It's been a pleasure having you this morning. But maybe I'll just have you just speak to the musicians, fellow musicians, your fellow fans, and what's your message to them in terms of, you know, where you want this industry to go, not only from a creative perspective, but also from a commercial perspective.
Okay, so what I would say is, as I always say, the dream works. So if there's anything that you want to do in life and you just put your all into it and focus on it, it definitely can work and it can make you a living. So with artists, just clean up your work, make sure you've got all documentation ready, network as much as possible, meet people, talk to people, and you never know where your music will land you.